Have you ever seen a double of someone? How would you react to hearing strange noises while you're supposed to be alone? What if your most loved relative became sinister? Today, we test the believability of the shadow at grandmother's funeral.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Hope your week is fantastic. We got past Monday. We're leaving
Thank
Monday in the
goodness.
dust.
It's in the dust, and behind us, those happy trails.
There's there's an episode, the Sunday Scaries.
What's that?
It's when people dread Monday.
Oh, no, I get that
It's
a
like
lot.
not enjoying your Sunday because you know work is coming tomorrow.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's the Sunday Scary. Now, we talk about spooky stuff on here, but not like that.
Those are real world scaries.
That is right. And today is another listener submission episode.
Ooh.
We got 3 stories for you, but before that, we would like to thank our newest patrons, who include Space Ghost, Zan, and Sierra. Thank you for joining our Patreon, joining our community over there, getting a whole ton of extra bonus
So
content.
you got a whole chunk of it.
Big wheelbarrow. Get yourself a wheelbarrow.
A wheelbarrow full of
bonus
dirt.
content.
That's right.
And extra stuff. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the support. And I hope you guys enjoy all the extra bonus stuff happening over there. Also, just a heads up and a reminder, this Friday, we do have our monthly blind rankings and bizarre news coming out. So if you're a patron, you get 3 extra bizarre news stories.
That's correct.
But our blind rankings was a lot of fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying those segments. Let us know in the comments if you are. We enjoy doing them.
Yeah, they're fun to put out.
Also, just another quick moment here. I do want to give a trigger warning for today's episode. There is some animal trauma and death. It's not gory. It's not like gory. You know, it's tame, but also
I'm laughing through fear. I have no idea what's going to happen.
People like
here.
their animals, so I just want to throw that.
I
at the
like
top.
my animals.
I do too. I'm not saying I get very sad when it's a horror movie
Mm-hmm.
and you see a cat or a dog. You're like,
DoesTheDogDie.com is my favorite tool.
but it doesn't make it better,
It makes you better if I know it's coming.
I guess. But I feel like if it's a horror movie and there's a dog or a cat, I guess for you it's not always a horror movie.
Right.
But if I just assume, like we watched Sting for a horror movie review last month with
Yeah.
the big spider alien thing, and
Yes,
there was a little dog and there was a cat,
Sometimes
and
they
you're
make
like,
it
there's
through.
a parrot. You're like, these guys are all done.
Well, yes. I mean, but sometimes they make it through.
Very rarely. I think
Very
of
rarely.
Independence Day. I think it was Boomer.
Oh,
The dog in the tunnel where all the fire's coming because all the explosions, and the dog slow motion jumps in the crevice with
Yes.
Will Smith's family.
Yeah.
Boomer. I think it was Boomer. I could be wrong.
I think you're right. I don't remember that. It's been a while since I've seen that.
Good movie though.
Welcome to art.
So this first listener submission story for this episode comes to us from Adrianna, and it takes place in Texas on Christmas in 2008. 16 years ago.
Shut up.
16 years ago.
Shut the fuck up. Oh, my high school reunion is coming up for 15 years.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not going. They want $90. I'm like,
$90? Who does that go to? What is it, just the setting it up?
They are having it somewhere, but
Okay.
it's not $90 for it. They're going to Topgolf.
That's pretty dope. That's more acceptable than the University of Akron still asking for donations.
That's true. Yes,
Like
that's
I got
done.
60,000 more donations to give you.
Yeah.
Be patient. So this story's in Texas on Christmas in 2008. Adrianna was 7 years old when this encounter took place.
Oh.
They were celebrating the holiday at her uncle's house, and she was playing with her brother Roy and her 2 cousins, Dahlia and Daniela. Roy was 11, Dahlia was 9, and Daniela was 5. So we're going to have very credible witnesses. Gotta believe everything they say. So one of their family traditions apparently was that everyone would one of the family members would dress up as Santa, and this year it was Adriana's uncle, and the rest of the family just dressed up like reindeer, except for the littlest cousin who was dressed up like an elf.
Sure.
And I just got to tell you, that does not come into play at all in this story. That was just a detail that we were given.
A little bit of flavor.
I was like, you know what?
Sure.
I'll relay that.
So just imagine everyone's dressed as a reindeer.
Reindeer, and the uncle is Santa. I guess here's where it comes into play.
Okay.
They went outside. They went outside the uncle's house because they wanted the other extended family member to see their costumes. Like, we're wearing these festive costumes, and we want everyone else to see, and that got them all outside, which is kind of where this begins. So I guess to a certain degree, it does play a part. But those are the details when you're reading a novel, and it's just a big block paragraph, and you have to quickly discern, is this world building where they're just adding details in to ground me, or can I skip the shit?
Well, you know, it's funny.
I skip that shit. I'll be honest. I really do.
I was listening to your last podcast and left. They're doing they were reading like some horror stories, and there's like this whole like 2 paragraphs about this father who helped his father who helped his son enter a contest for Disney World, and that's how they're going to get the tickets to this contest. Does not come later into the story at all. Yeah. And totally could have been skipped.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you read it just because it was submitted to you out of like the kindness of like they sent it, they wrote it. So.
Oh, no, it was a creepypasta. No, they found that.
Oh, that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
I would almost much rather read like a screenplay where it's just like, sometimes if I see big block text in a book, I'll look for the next dialogue and try and see if I can just
piece together.
Yeah, I know that's makes me probably a very poor reader, but sometimes I reread the nice paragraphs too.
I think you're a smart reader.
Oh, thank you. So they're waiting outside for the extended family, and Daniela, the youngest one, the 5-year-old, let everyone know that she had to go inside and use the restroom.
Yeah.
And she was told to be quick so as not to miss anyone coming. So, because she was wearing she was the one elf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You'd lose it. You know, you got the one Santa, the reindeer, and the elf. And if the elf isn't there, then
someone's like, "Where's the elf?
We're going home."
Where's your little child? Dressed as an elf.
So 10 minutes went by, and Daniela still hadn't come back outside. So beyond the whole surprise thing, Adriana's father was a little worried about her. So he asked his 2 children, Adrianna and Roy, to go get her. And here's a quote from Adrianna. Quote, "We knocked on the first bathroom that was downstairs where we thought she went, and there was no answer. We checked her parents' bathroom, no answer. Her house is 2-story, but hardly anyone ever goes upstairs. But there is a bathroom up there, so I decided to check that one as well. My brother, Roy, stayed downstairs. While I checked the bathroom, I heard laughing that sounded like Dahlia coming from the bedroom. I went in there, and I looked around, and I didn't see anything. But the last place I checked was under the bed. There she was, laying under the bed, which I thought maybe she was just trying to hide from us or scare us or prank us. I don't know. She saw me, and she did that shushing face with her finger over her mouth. I rolled my eyes, and I ran back downstairs, and I told my brother I found her. He then asked, 'How'd you find her if she was in the bathroom here?' According to my brother, she ended up being in the downstairs bathroom. And I asked him, 'What do you mean she's under the bed upstairs?' And he replied, 'No, she's not. I just knocked on the bathroom door and she told me that she was in there.'" Unquote. So confused, Adrianna immediately ran back upstairs to prove to herself that Dahlia was actually upstairs and that she wasn't crazy, and maybe they were just playing some type of trick on her. When Adrianna retreated back downstairs to the living room, there was Dahlia standing next to her brother. Adrianna asked Dahlia, did she go upstairs? And she said no. She said that she went to the kitchen when she came inside to grab a bottle of water and then went straight to the bathroom down there. Adrianna was stunned. She told Dahlia that she had seen her under the bed upstairs, so they all ran outside to tell her dad just to try to make sense of everything. Adriana's dad said they were probably just imagining it and just kind of blew the whole thing off. Since then, Adriana's uncle passed away, so she hadn't really spent too much time there after this, but even when she was there, she never experienced anything like this before.
Man.
What do you think?
Not a lot of times I would sympathize with the horror movie dad, but I feel like in this circumstance, I would have trouble believing it. Like, I'd feel like it was around Christmas. Was it Christmas Eve?
No, it's Christmas.
It's Christmas Day.
Christmas.
Yeah, there's a lot of shenanigans going on anyway on Christmas.
What?
Well,
I don't associate Christmas with shenanigans.
fun times, shenanigans,
Festivities.
a lot of fun happening. So I feel like there's a lot of playing around, and then on top of that, you're having fun in the costumes.
The older I get, and I do like we pick on horror movie dad, but let me just be frank. I do understand horror movie dad.
I do too.
To the
get it, yeah.
to the extent of what can I actually do now. Bad horror movie dad makes it seem like you're crazy.
Yeah, it's almost gaslighting, right?
You're making it up. You're
Yeah.
crazy. That didn't really happen. That's not real. Now, I don't like that. That's not fair.
Mhm.
That's not kind, and you're causing trauma and issues down the road.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, should I just sell our house?
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
get like, do you get it cleansed? Like,
Mhm.
but also, like, imagine if you have a 6-year-old and they're like, there's a monster under my bed.
Yeah.
And if you get it cleansed, you are telling your 6-year-old, yeah, there's scary stuff out there and we're taking action against it rather than
There's no way that's real.
that's not real.
Yeah.
It's like, and Adrianna wasn't quite 6 here, but
yeah. 7.
also, but yeah, I mean, there's also like so much other stuff happening, I'm sure, for like the day, the planning, the
Mhm.
gifts,
Mhm.
you know.
There's a lot of energy being put in Christmas.
You
You
don't
know?
want to be like, oh, you saw a doppelganger.
That is really weird, though. What a weird place for it to be. What if it was just a real elf? It was Christmas. It was just a real elf.
Oh, I didn't even think that you'd bring that into this.
You fool.
I don't know. I mean, I do think there is potential that it was a prank. I think there's pranking potential here.
I think so, too. They said they checked the first bathroom.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Nothing.
They said they checked the bathroom and there's nothing.
Yes.
And then they checked the other bathroom, the
Mhm.
parents' bathroom, and then they went upstairs and then she checked the bathroom, didn't see her, and then she was doing this.
Yeah.
But she didn't see her in the bathroom. She went down and talked to her brother, and her brother said no, she was in the bathroom. Now, I don't know the timeline, like when Dahlia could have went downstairs, like how did she get past
Right.
Adrianna? I don't know those logistics.
That's true. We also don't know the house. We've never been there.
We didn't get the blueprint.
That's right.
Probably for the
Send
best.
the official blueprint.
Actually, I think she did send a paragraph, and I was just like,
Nope.
we're okay. We're okay.
Gotta cut that.
Charlie and I have made a decision, for the most part,
We have. Yeah.
that the blueprint,
It's funny. It wasn't collective either. It was individual.
yeah, and it just happened to be the same. It's
Yeah.
like, it has to be very, like, I don't mind you
Super
writing
relevant
it.
to the plot.
Yeah, and I don't mind you writing it because sometimes you have to write things to get them out, to get the flow of the story.
Mhm.
Like, my writing professors would always, like, it was like a running thing. It's like, this is a good story, cut the first 2 paragraphs. It's like, you, like, when you start writing, it's like your first 2 paragraphs are to get you where
Yeah.
you need to be.
Mhm.
And normally the reader just needs to be on paragraph 3.
Yeah, it's like you can almost. It's like turn on the water, right?
Yeah, it's cold for the first, like, 5 minutes. Is that where you're going with that? Like, shower?
Well, getting out the water, I guess.
Oh, I don't have well water.
I don't either. But you know what I mean? Dirty water. It
Just
used to
going
be a
down to your
thing.
basement, grabbing a good old cup of that floor water, Charlie.
That's right. The house is fine. Everything's fine.
So that is Adrianna's story. Let's move on to our second story from the Netherlands.
Oh, cool. Never been there. I'd love to go there.
This is from Robin. This is another short one. This is short, and then feature length film.
We got 2 shorts before the Disney classic. I
Yes.
understand.
This takes place in 2016.
Or if you will, sorry, the Pokemon short before the Pokemon movie comes.
Okay.
They always did that. I'm sorry.
I never experienced that, but I believe you. So I'm going to read this one as a quote. Quote, in 2016, I was pregnant with our youngest daughter. She was an unplanned bliss, but we were super happy.
That's a good way to put that.
However, the planning was a bit trickier. I work as an actress, and at that time, I was touring the country, and at the same time during the day, I was rehearsing for another production. Honestly, I was always exhausted. At one point, I decided to book a hotel so that I didn't have to pack back home and I could stay in bed a little longer the next day. I waved goodbye to my colleagues and walked to the hotel. Only it turned out that the hotel was closed. But thankfully, there was a phone number on the door. So I called the number, and the man was surprised that I had been able to book online, but also just didn't want to leave me hanging on the street. So he came to the hotel, unlocked it, and he actually let me in. He gave me a key to the room, and we agreed that he would come back the next morning to make me breakfast. And then he left.
What kind of hotel?
So here I was alone in a hotel room that was pretty old, dark, and really cold. I went to my room, turned the heat up, and it was just a small room, so thankfully it warmed up pretty quickly. I watched some TV and fell asleep shortly after that. But then I woke up in the middle of the night because there was a party going on the floor above me, like a loud, vibrant party. There was music, voices, laughter, footsteps, everything you'd expect to hear from a big get-together. Annoyed, I rolled over to my other side. Naturally, I was pretty frustrated. I wanted to sleep, and I really needed my rest. Finally, I fell asleep again. It wasn't until the next morning, while roaming the hotel, that I realized there was no one else here. There were no cars outside, luggage, no people wandering around, nothing. I was completely alone in the hotel. In fact, the door to the hotel wasn't even open. The hotel was closed and the door had been locked behind me. So I don't know what I heard that night, but I'm secretly glad that I was too tired to really worry about it. Unquote.
That might be the scariest, one of the scariest listener submissions we've ever gotten. To me.
To you?
To me, yeah.
Really? Extrapolate.
The idea of being in this hotel, there's no one there. There's no staff. There's no one. That's one of the comforts of a hotel for me, is that there's staff there. There's people there. Things are happening, despite the time. But you're alone in this hotel. Anything could happen. That's so scary to me.
It's kind of, to a certain extent, it's why living in the suburbs is kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's like neighbors are close by. It's like, not that
they're
honestly,
on top of you, but
if I screamed, they'd probably be like, yeah, he's fine. But it's like that house where there's like the nearest neighbor's 2 miles away. You're like,
it's so scary too. Yeah, it's isolation.
Yeah, it's the isolate, which is huge with horror. But
then there's this party. Like, that's normal. It's a hotel, but you're in the middle of nowhere.
It's one of those things too where it's like you're so groggy.
Yeah.
And you're like in the half awake, half asleep mindset.
Yeah.
That you're just like, this is normal. People party at a hotel. Mm-hmm. Like you're not in the right state of mind to really think about all the details leading up to that. You know what I mean? It'd be like at a dorm.
Right.
Like you're at a dorm, you're asleep and you hear noise, but then it'd be different if it was like over Christmas break and you're the only one in there.
Oh, God.
This one gives me Shining vibes.
I was thinking Shining or even the Tower of Terror.
Oh.
From Twilight Zone.
Oh, okay. I have a theory. I'm gonna mention it, but I don't want to talk about it really until we get into the discussion later.
Okay.
Which if you're new, after we tell our stories, the listener submissions, or if it's a main episode, the topic, we go to the discussion and we rank these on our believability scale from believable to viable to skeptical to unbelievable based on our own opinions and thoughts. Okay, if there's people, maybe it was workers.
Yeah.
People, workers makes the most sense actually. That knew it was closed. Mm-hmm. Knew that no one was going to be there. The owner wasn't away. It was closed for the night, locked. Mm-hmm. Could it? I don't want squatting. Makes it sound like that's a different.
No, but
vibe.
you break in and have a party.
Yeah, like one of the it's like the janitor has keys. He invites like 7 or 8 friends. We can be as loud as we want. We can ruckus. Because here's the thing, they don't know that she's there.
Yeah, because
there's no reason for them to know. Because she walked too. There's no car.
There's a car.
It's not like you go to the hotel. You see a car in the driveway. You're like, oh, someone's here. Party's off, guys. Yeah. If there's no car, no lights on, they unlock the door. They know to unlock it when they leave.
Yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts on that?
That I could see that definitely, especially if the staff is younger.
Mm-hmm. This is the Netherlands. I don't know what that means.
Oh
but
yeah, I forgot.
I don't know what that means.
I forgot this is not.
Surprised this isn't a hostel, but
It's interesting. I could see both sides, but initially, to me, this is terrifying.
Oh, it is terrifying. Yeah. I mean, if the paranormal side of it,
even just the human side, like say it is a party that broke in,
that's
right?
true.
And they find out you're there, and they have bad intentions. That's scary.
The most realistic and least scary is that it's people who work there who have a key. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's people. If it's not ghosts, it's people breaking in. And
that's really scary too.
Then it's a good thing they didn't know you were there.
Yes,
that's just yeah, I don't like that at all. So that is Robin's story from the Netherlands. Let's move to our main story for this episode. All right, this last story comes to us from Abby in Oklahoma.
Abby in Oklahoma. What part of Oklahoma did she say?
No,
Probably the capital.
lots of different places in Oklahoma. She travels a lot, yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's only one really big place, right? Where Parker lived?
There's Oklahoma City, there's Tulsa. He lived in McAllister.
McAllister, that's right.
Where he lived.
I don't know. I've never even been to Oklahoma.
Me and Claire are the only people that visited Parker.
I know, I didn't go. I should have gone. But
Most family didn't go either. So.
Well, that's between them.
So she has a few different encounters that we'll be talking about. The first encounter takes place in July of 2011 when Abby was just 8 years old. Another young, credible witness.
Very credible.
So Abby lived with her grandparents throughout her childhood, and this first story takes place in that home. Her grandparents lived in a rural town in Oklahoma, which
isn't that
I wrote I can only assume was all.
Yes, all of Oklahoma.
I'm kidding though. Like I just said, I've been to OKC, I've been to Tulsa, I've been to McAllister. They have a nice.
They're not like big cities though. They're like
Oklahoma City
Akron.
is. I think it's more like. Well, I don't know if it's quite like Cleveland. You don't feel. It doesn't feel rural to me.
Okay.
When I was there, it didn't feel rural.
Like wow, they got big old buildings here.
I went in 2016 and I watched LeBron James and Kevin Love and Kyrie whip that ass. And they still had Kevin Durant on that team too.
Yeah.
I was wearing my Wally Zerbiak jersey.
Wow. I don't know who that is. Perfect. I don't know any about basketball.
So on this particular night, Abby's grandmother, Mary, and her stepfather, Donald, were both away at a hospital due to recent lung cancer diagnosis.
Oh, jeez.
Which is very sad. So with the grandparents away for Mary's treatment, this left just Abby and her mother, Pam, at the house. Abby's mom was in the living room watching TV, and Abby was in her room playing with some toys. Abby notes that her bedroom was connected to both the grandparents' room and along with the living room. So there's two entrances, living room, and it goes right to the grandparents' room.
So this is relevant, like we were talking about earlier.
The entrance is relevant. So here's a quote from Abby. Quote, "The door to my grandma's room was a heavy door, and it pushed into the carpet because the hinges were really low. You have to really push the door in order to open or close it. Now, I had my back to the door when I heard the door slam shut, sliding across the carpet. I originally thought at the time that this was just my mom going to lay down in my grandma's room. So I got up and knocked on the door and slowly opened it. The room was completely empty. I looked over at the living room, and there she was, still laying on the couch. I immediately felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I slowly walked to the living room, and I told her, 'Mom, I think someone's in the house.' She blinked at me and asked why I thought that. I told her that I heard the heavy door shut behind me, so she immediately called 911. Soon, multiple cop cars were blocking the road. We stayed with the officer while 6 others searched the property. They searched around for a few hours, but they didn't find anything too suspicious." Unquote.
That's pretty scary.
It makes me think of your story with the theater and the big heavy door.
Mm-hmm.
Different, but it's just like if you are familiar enough with a door that it's so heavy and like
it takes like real force.
Yeah. I mean, and we all know those heavy doors. You know, you've come across one sometime where it's just like you really got to like.
It needs it.
My garage door.
Yeah,
I'll say. You got to really like.
That one needs a good kick.
Good kick.
I was gonna say I was 8 when my experience in the theater, and I believe that to this day. So
with the head, just tell the story again. It's quick.
So I was leaving a theater. I was the only one in there, and I went to use the restroom downstairs, and then I was leaving. As I was leaving, I turned around and I saw the corner I'd just been. A head kind of just like appear from behind the corner, and it was so eerie because no one else is in the theater. I was only 8 years old because it was like my family's theater, essentially, where they did a lot of work. And I was supposed to lock up and leave. And I told my grandparents about it, and they're like, "Oh, that's what's his face?" And they like knew who it was because of that. It was just crazy.
The concept of being so chill about a ghost, they're like, "Oh, that's just so and so."
Yeah.
I can only hope one day, if I ever have a haunting, that I can become that chill.
Yeah.
Train the ghost to like bring over a Coke or something.
Like a good trained dog.
Man, I hope. Imagine having a studio ghost. That would suck.
It would not. Well, it depends what he did. If he like reorganize and put things away.
He's vacuuming.
Oh no,
it's so scary. I'm gonna leave the dish soap and everything over here. I hope it doesn't move over and clean everything. Here's the Dawn wipes.
I hope all the chairs aren't put away when I leave.
Ben, you're fired. We just hired a ghost. Just kidding, Ben. We love you. So according to Abby, the only thing that was strange or unusual after that door incident that the cops noticed was with their horse named Applejack.
You got a horse?
Yeah. The horse, Applejack, was staying on the land behind Abby's grandparents' property, and everyone acknowledged when the cops came that this horse was severely spooked. He didn't let anyone near him, even when people approached with food, which she claims would have had him running right up next to you. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe the cops being there startled the horse. Yeah. I think it's feasible to assume that a horse might be freaked out by, because I'm assuming there's sirens too.
Probably.
Like, you're not going to have chill cops just riding up with like music playing, you know?
Especially if there's like an intruder.
Can they have music?
I do not know. I have no idea.
I know in GTA, when you're in a cop car, you can't get the radio, so.
I have no idea.
They just got that, like, I head out the sunroof.
Popular music.
There's 7 of us. I didn't think I need my sirens on, too.
Play the driver's song by Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Driver's license.
It's a good song. But there was another strange detail about Applejack. He was walking around with a strange limp in his front right leg, and he had a claw mark that went across his neck.
Oh, no.
So they decided to take Applejack to the vet, which was with a veterinarian that they took Applejack to before. Like, this isn't a first-time visit.
Known him, yeah.
So even though there was that familiarity with the vet, Applejack was still very freaked out and was displaying reluctant behavior.
Yeah.
Which I assume the limp and the claw mark might have had something to do with that.
Probably, yeah.
So the vet treated the wound for possible infection and was not able to identify what caused these injuries. And unfortunately, going back to the trigger warning, about a week later, Applejack passed away for unknown reasons.
Oh my God.
Unknown reasons is like so strange to me. And also it's just like...
Yeah. He's being treated.
Weird combination of events.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you hear a story, you can put, 1 and 1 or 2 and 2 together. But here we have a door slamming shut.
Mm-hmm.
Which is strange, unusual, paranormal potentially. And then we have a horse that has a limp and a claw mark on it at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's not like a one fell swoop. Like if the door shut and there was an animal in the way and that animal was injured from the door, it's like cause and effect. Mm-hmm, it's like, what relation does the door slamming shut have with this horse claw mark?
Right. Like,
I don't have an answer for you either. Like, this is just strange.
No. Yeah, I don't know how they could connect. Maybe it's got something to do with activity. Just, I don't know. That's so strange.
So far we have grandparents away for lung cancer, heavy door inexplicably shutting on its own, and the horse develops a strange injury and passes away. So in Abby's words, a quote, "This is where I believe it gets to be paranormal."
It wasn't before?
Guess not. So naturally, everyone was a bit shaken up after everything going on. Between the lung cancer diagnosis, the police officers coming over, the loss of Applejack, everyone was a little bit on edge. Not to mention the strange door slamming that Abby witnessed, because that's kind of like the most paranormal thing and the trigger, but it's also like the least. No one else probably cares about that. Horse died.
Yeah.
Cops came because they thought a real person was in the house, and grandmother now has lung cancer.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though the door slamming might have initiated some of this, it's so like low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
But that isn't where the strangeness ended. Abby said the week after the incident and Applejack passing, her grandma started acting strange. Her mood seemed to shift and spiral, and she was always extremely angry, specifically at Abby.
Mm.
She didn't want to be in the same room as Abby. She didn't want to be near Abby. She didn't even want to look at Abby. Now, Abby's grandpa told her not to take it to heart and that it was just all the medication that her grandma was on.
Mm-hmm. But
still, it was really hard for Abby not to take it personally because it hurt her deeply. She considered her grandma to be one of her best friends. Plus, it wasn't, I'm on medication and now I'm irritable. I'm on medication and I'm angry at the world and I have this hate. It really seemed like this was specific hate directed at Abby, not like everyone else, not like a complete, like a mood shift, but not like a general mood shift, like a anger, hate at you, which is coming from her perspective.
Yeah,
but
as an 8-year-old.
But still.
And it's hard. She's going through so much with that diagnosis, and like you don't know how you're gonna react.
Right.
I'm just gonna let you tell your story because we'll talk about it later.
So here's a quote from Abby. Quote, "One day, my grandpa went to the grocery store and told me to stay with my grandma. I was sitting in the same exact spot on the floor where the original experience happened, and I heard the same sound as before, the heavy door gliding across the carpet. I turned around and I saw my grandma staring at me. But I don't think this was my grandma. The veins on her forehead were bulging and purple, and she was drooling at the mouth. She just stood there staring at me. I got this gut feeling to run and to get away as fast as I could. I heard her growling under her breath, and then a whisper, 'You ruined it.' It got excessively louder. 'You ruined it,' over and over, getting louder every single time she said it, until she was eventually screaming at the top of her lungs. I started crying and shaking. I jumped up and ran out of the house, with her running behind me. She was running at full speed, extremely fast for someone at her age, especially with cancer. As soon as I ran out the front door, she slowly shut it, and I heard a lock sound. She'd locked me out. I ran to my aunt's house, and she called my grandpa and told him what happened. He agreed to let me stay with her from then on." Unquote.
Jesus Christ. We've talked before about how possessions could happen at the weakest moment in your life. Is there more about the grandmother in this?
There's a kind of a fleeting moment.
Okay.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that. That, I'll tell you, that section was the moment I knew this was the feature story of this episode. I was just like,
yeah,
everything after this could be garbage, which it's not. But I'm like, this is it. I had my hair stood on my neck reading that. The drooling,
so
the veins
scary.
bulging. It's like even her coming out and being like, I don't think this was my grandma.
Right.
So about 6 months later, Abby's grandmother passed away. She had only seen her grandma about 3 or 4 times after the incident. She seemed normal, kind of like her old self before everything changed, but the emotional damage had been done. And Abby still had a really bad feeling in her stomach whenever her grandma was around. At her grandma's funeral, Abby decided that she really didn't want to go up to the casket. Deep down, she wanted the last visual and memories of her grandma to be the good times, not just a body in a casket that had terrified her. So here's a quote from Abby. "When you walk into the funeral home and you walk by these rooms," quote, "when you walk around the funeral home, you walk by these rooms that have windows. When I went to go to the restroom, the door was locked and somebody was in there, so I just stood in the hallway waiting for the bathroom to be open. So I decided to look in one of these windows in the rooms and see what was inside. And when I did, I could see something looking at me. It was just a shadow, probably around 5'6" or so, and it had no facial features. My heart started racing. I heard the bathroom door open, and I turned around to see my cousin CJ. I saw something, I told her. She looked into the room, only to say that she didn't see anything, and that I was probably just mourning, and I needed to go sit back down." Unquote. So, could that shadow be what was with her grandma?
I don't know. It's hard because it's a funeral home too.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's tons of things happening there, but it was something that it seemed like only Abby could see. Now, she might be just sensitive in general.
Yeah.
And so it might not be attached to, her grandma, but it's interesting and also tragic to think about the thing that might have taken over her grandma was there for the funeral and was no longer with her grandma because she had passed.
Yeah. But it was still kind of haunting.
Mm-hmm. Spooky stuff. So that was Abby's last paranormal encounter for a few years. Now, spring of 2014, Abby's mother had just graduated from nursing school. This led them to rent a house about 30 miles away from the original home, the grandparents' home. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and her mom also got into a serious relationship. Okay, now listen.
Okay.
I'm going to do the best I can. And we've talked about this before. We talk about it all the time off the podcast. We both try to gauge the horror, the comedy, and the seriousness with these stories. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a common thing where we'll be like, hey, is this one silly? Is this one scary? Like, so that way, you know, like Charlie doesn't know going into it what we're talking about, and I don't know when he does the episode. So it's like you're trying to gauge the vibe before it even starts.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a mixed tone of like a really scary story and you're making jokes, you know, or whatever, the opposite. So being honest, I look at the story, I think a lot of creepy stuff's happened. I think there's a lot of tragedy. I think it's serious. I'm looking at this through more of a serious lens. But Charlie, no disrespect to the wonderful state of Oklahoma, and no disrespect to anybody out there with his name. But Abby's mom's boyfriend, who she began this serious relationship with, was named Jim Bob. God damn. I can't. I mean, I believe there was an offensive coordinator or a coach, and his name was Jim Bob Cooter. I'm going to be telling you these stories here, and I'm going to be saying Jim Bob.
couldn't pick Jim or Bob. Both.
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob. Jeez, oh man. Okay.
My mom's in a serious relationship with Jim Bob.
I gotta stop.
I know. That's why we had to release it now. You know what I mean? It's like getting it out of the way.
Yeah.
Letting it out. So anyways, Abby's mom would go to work at this particular day, and it was just Jim Bob and Abby at home. And they often played video games on his Xbox or watch movies to kill the time. So here's a quote from Abby. Quote, "One night, Mom was working a night shift, so it was just Jim Bob and I alone. Our rooms were on different sides of the house. I was asleep in my room when I suddenly woke up to something scratching my leg. I thought it was just the cat at first because we did have two, but I realized that my door was shut and they were not in my room when I went to sleep. So I jolted up and I looked at my bed. There was nothing there. I ran to Jim Bob's room to tell him what I felt. I knocked on the door and he opened it. And I told him what I felt. And originally he said, you're probably just freaking out over nothing, just go back to bed. But that was until he saw my legs. I had claw marks going down both legs. Not deep enough to need stitches, but enough to get blood on the floor.
Oh, man.
We both slept on the living room floor that night. 2 weeks later, I was sleeping on the living room couch because, again, I refused to go to my room when I heard screaming coming from my mom's room. I jumped up and ran to the door when it bursted open. Jim Bob ran out with my mom running out behind him. He was jumping around and flailing his arms. My mom and I kept asking him what was wrong, but he was so shaken that he couldn't answer. I looked down at his legs, and he had the exact same claw marks running down both legs. We moved out 5 months later." Unquote.
Oh, it's a long time to wait.
Well, I don't think might not have been because of that, but just kind of moving the story along. But definitely bad juju. And also just, tying things together. If you look back at Applejack.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Applejack with the big claw mark.
That's 100% what I was thinking.
Abby with the claw mark, Jim Bob with the claw mark. This is, we're starting to get a through line a little bit. Yeah. Almost named this the claw marks. Didn't name it that, but I was thinking of it.
The claw mark. I was 100% thinking
the vicious claw mark.
Like, I wonder.
It's just, yeah. Like, I don't know.
What is that? I don't think that's a ghost. I don't know what that is.
I wish, not that it matters, but I wonder how many fingers the claw mark had.
I know. Oh, I think that matters.
Yeah. I envision 3, but.
I do too. I also envision 3 marks.
Depends how big your leg is, I guess. But yeah, no, that's very creepy.
That's terrifying. And there's blood everywhere.
So moving on to our next encounter, and this one took place in fall of 2015. They moved about 20 miles from the previous house that they rented. And I think she's adding that information in the submission to signify that there is distance. Like, this wasn't explicitly said, but she's making a point every time a new encounter happens to let us know how many miles there are separating them.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's kind of like, hey, this isn't just a haunted neighborhood or a haunted area. Like, there are miles between these encounters, which to me feels like attachment type stuff.
I think so too, because it's not following. It's not you're not going everywhere haunted all the time. It's following. It's attached there.
Yeah, I don't like. So Abby's mom and Jim Bob broke up, so it was back to being just Abby and her mom.
She was like, Jim Bob, your name's fucking stupid. I'm just kidding.
Get the fuck out, Jim Bob. Hey, don't you come back. We're in Minnesota. I feel like Jim Bob's Southern, but it's also Minnesotan.
It's Jim Bob. How you doing there? But also, Jim Bob, what's up, man?
How you doing, Jim Bob?
That's pretty urban Southern.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, see. So one night, after living in the home for about 2 months, Abby woke up and was unable to move. She was suffering from sleep paralysis, which, whether you believe it to be paranormal or you believe the science behind it or both, either way, it's very creepy and unsettling. I've never experienced it, and I never want to.
Nope.
Never, ever, ever. Here's a quote from Abby. Quote, I always keep my closet door closed. Honestly, I don't want anything staring at me from there, and I never want the feeling of anything staring at me from there. So I wake up, and I'm unable to move when I noticed that my closet door was open.
Oh.
Nothing was staring at me, and I didn't really have any bad feelings, but still, the door was wide open, so I knew something was off. I later asked my mom if she put away some of my clothes while I was asleep, because sometimes she would do my laundry when I'm busy with sports, and she said no, unquote. So the following summer of 2016, Abby ended up living with her biological father because of a bad living situation with her mom, which is sad. And I don't know what happened. I'm assuming it wasn't paranormal if it wasn't included, but it's also hard to believe that there wasn't maybe paranormal undertones.
I agree with that.
We don't know, but I don't know the extent, so I can't speak to it.
We're speculating.
Yeah, I have no idea, and hopefully the relationship is okay. But it's just after everything else we've heard, it's just, I guess it all just piles up to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so it ended up being Abby, her dad, her stepmom, and her stepbrother, Noah. They renovated the basement to give Abby her own bedroom and some privacy, which is cool. And it was, it was a nice little spot. And so one night she heard loud clashing and banging in the kitchen, which was very close to her space in the basement. Initially, maybe she thought it was her father or her stepmom because she heard the kitchen sink start running. So she got up to go check out the sound, but realized that no one was there. And not only that, the water wasn't even running. There were no pots, there were no pans, there were no cupboards open. There was no evidence that any sort of crashing or banging had come from the kitchen, which is a different type of creepy situation. Because if you walk into a room, it's like that all the chairs are stacked and all the cupboards are open. Like, that's scary. Especially, but it's almost like if you don't hear anything and you walk in there and that happened, that's scary. Mm-hmm. This is like the opposite. It's like you expect to find a mess or you expect to find a family member dropped something and it's just pristine. You heard water running.
What was that?
Yeah, you heard water running. Nothing was there. You heard clashing and banging. No evidence of it. So, as we've learned, Abby is just like exposed to paranormal encounters at this time in situations. Because as soon as she goes back downstairs in the basement, she lays down, she starts hearing it again. Mm-mm. She hears the crashing, she hears some other noises, and she's just like, fuck it. Like, I'm over it. She puts her headphones in, rolls over, and falls asleep. That is badass.
Yeah.
That is just like, I've been scratched, I've been attacked by my grandma, I've seen shadow fit. I'm just like,
it's
go
like
ahead.
Being jaded with the paranormal.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, that's what it's gonna be tonight. I'm going to bed. It's fine.
I wonder. I am begging to know if her father's house with her stepmother, had any kind of paranormal activity before she got there.
We'll never know, but it seems unless she just picks every haunted house to visit,
right? It's not just the houses.
Yeah, I mean, the signs that the things she experienced in that house don't quite match.
No.
But,
it's almost like it's like antagonizing in different ways.
I wonder also, and this is something to talk about in the discussion, but the grandmother saying you ruined it.
Yeah.
That's something to think on.
Yeah.
But let's get to Abby's fifth and final encounter that she submitted to us. And I'll read it in her words. Quote, in November of 2021, we moved into a small town because of my dad's job. This was a 100-year-old house with 90 acres. My dad's friend, Tim, said that there was an old Indian burial ground behind the house, closer to the edge of the property. I didn't believe him at the time, but now I'm not sure. We bought cattle as well as horses to run a ranch. We've had multiple cows randomly die, always at the edge of the property near the neighbor's fence. These cows would have huge wounds to the neck and stomach, but they were never eaten. Tim said that maybe it was skinwalkers, but I don't think that there are skinwalkers in Oklahoma. Even coyotes wouldn't eat on the bodies throughout the night like they normally would. Our horses would also refuse to go near the edge of the property, as well as our 6 dogs. None of our animals, besides the cows, would walk away from the home. One night, I was asleep in my bed when I heard my closet door slowly creak open. I turned to look, and I saw a young woman staring at me, smiling, but I didn't feel scared. In fact, I actually felt very safe around her. I stared at her all night until I eventually fell asleep. I ended up seeing her almost every single night, sometimes in my closet, sometimes at the edge of my bed. I've even had friends who've claimed to see her, but I eventually got married and moved to Virginia, and I hadn't seen her since. Unquote.
Bro, what the fuck?
You good?
No, that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, that is.
I did not expect that.
Which is ironic because she said she wasn't afraid, but you know, she's just numb at this point. Like,
yes.
There's nothing. That's not true, but like.
Oh my God. But I feel like her radar is thrown off.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to the smile. I feel like you can take a lot away from a smile. There's many different shades of smiles, and she seemed to not be alarmed by this one, but what is happening to her cows? Right. And why are the cows just dumb? Like everything else is just like, I mean, don't go over there. And they go like, oh.
Cows got no instincts.
Cows are just like, oh.
For real.
So that is Abby's many paranormal encounters in the great state of Oklahoma. There's a lot to talk about there. Good point. Let's get to the discussion. All right, we had 3 listener submissions for you in this episode. Let's go through. Obviously, we'll spend the most amount of time discussing Abby's, but let's talk about Adrianna.
Yeah.
Little Christmas party, goes upstairs, sees Dahlia, the little elf. Not really an elf. What you think?
Unless maybe it was an elf.
Brownie the elf with the clean
maybe
browns.
Santa had forgotten a little helper.
Yeah. Don't. She's like, don't let him find me. I don't want to work. I mean, we never get any time off.
I got no vacation time.
So she goes upstairs, is looking for her, sees her under the bed, comes back downstairs. She was never there.
Santa's a union buster.
I think there's potential. And again, we rate these on our believability scale: believable, viable, skeptical, unbelievable. I certainly think there's opportunity that this could be a prank. I can't perfectly say it wasn't.
It's just weird.
It feels like a one-off. Now, it's the uncle's house. It's not like it's her home. Yeah. She said she's never experienced anything there before, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, paranormal moments can be fleeting.
It's true.
Doesn't mean it doesn't have to be long-lasting.
It's just weird because they said they checked the bottom floor already.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. It's easy to see a silly prank in this scenario. I just don't know how you could see her upstairs and then she'd be downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where the whole story comes from, right? Like they can't get their head around it either.
Yeah. And just to be clear, believable means that we believe that it's paranormal. Unbelievable would be that it's not paranormal.
At all.
At all.
It's just, it's difficult. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking skeptical. Because I am skeptical. I mean, I'm legitimately skeptical. I'm curious if... Let me put it this way. From Adrianna's perspective, I don't think she's in on it. Like, I think she legitimately is like, what is going on? It would come down to whether or not Dahlia and Roy and everyone did play a prank.
Yeah. The atmosphere, the festivities, I could easily see a prank being played.
Hiding under a bed though, like that, is weird though. Like I have to use the restroom and you go inside. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I broke something behavior. Like maybe she did something wrong that we just don't know about. Adrianna doesn't know about.
Yeah.
But the I don't know, the shushing.
It's like,
it's so creepy.
It is weird, and it's just another thing that adds to it. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not going full unbelievable because there is that where there are things that just don't make perfect sense. But then it's like, is this a doppelganger moment?
That's the thing about doppelgangers too, is they don't always make sense. They don't look quite right always, and like they do things that are just weird.
But she must be wearing the elf outfit, but it's also not like a doppelganger in passing. Like same house.
Actively.
Yeah, it's like same time. So are we going dimensional? I don't know. Where do you rate this on the scale and why?
I think
short answer response.
There's a lot to question about it, so it's like on like the lowest end of viable to me. Just because I cannot wrap my head around how she could just see her, and if Roy is stuck by a story this whole time and she's stuck by her story the whole time, they're just downstairs. I just can't put together how it could not be paranormal at that point. But also, there's just so much going around. It makes me think that it does seem like a prank. So I can't go like full believable.
I feel like we got 60% of the story here, you know?
Yeah.
And also, Roy might not have been in on it. It could have been Dahlia and Daniela. They were siblings. Dahlia and Daniela were siblings, and Roy and Adrianna were siblings. So maybe he wasn't in on it, but he did witness her downstairs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we have like 60% of the story.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's details and timing elements or like details of the house. This like give us a blueprint. Is it like Clue or like the conservatory in the kitchen? Like was there a way to go from that bedroom down to the bathroom? That'd be terrible.
Yes.
Or why is my bedroom smelling so bad? All right, so our next listener submission story is from Robin in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So this is actress, pregnant, but like
still working hard.
But I don't want to say a detail that didn't matter. But congratulations, Robin. But like,
of course,
it's just a detail. But so Robin, pregnant actress, goes to a hotel. It's booked it. Said it was closed. Dude came, opened it up. She stayed the night. And here's a huge party going on above her, and then wakes up and realizes there's no one else here.
Yes. So either circumstance we talk about is terrifying.
Whether there's real people,
or
I stand by the least scary is coworkers or people that work there who had a key,
party,
and innocent. Like we know no one else is going to be here. Not like a break-in,
right?
I mean, it's not good. No owner wants employees to come when it's closed, and
right.
Throw a rager.
But it's still, you're right. It's the most innocent, least scary. Not even scary, really.
Yeah, but then it's like if people broke in, it's just like the idea of like, what if they knew I was here?
That's terrifying.
It's like that moment where it's like you're trying to be quiet and then you drop something,
and
it's like then the music stops. And then it's like, or like that moment in like I don't think you've seen it, but House on Haunting Hill. Have you seen it?
No.
Where they look, she's looking through. Well, I'll just spoil the scene. She's in this house, and it's
on a hill.
It is on a hill. Marilyn Manson's "Sweet Dreams" is playing while they're climbing up
a good
in the
song.
car. But it's like this doctor's office, like where they experiment on people or whatever. And she can't see him with her eyes, but she can see him on the video recorder. And she's watching it happen. And it's just this moment where they all stop and they just like look at her.
Ooh.
And it's just like, imagine like it's one thing when the party doesn't know you're there, but then you drop something, your bed creaks, and then the music just, and then it's just like silence. And you're like, it's when the bad guy knows that you know.
Yeah.
It's just that like, I can't be naive anymore. I can't. It's just the exposed vulnerability. Like, I don't like that. Now that didn't happen.
No,
that didn't happen. She just heard it.
But also, there's a totally real possibility that this is like a ghost party.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a haunted hotel,
it's an old hotel in
Amsterdam,
in the Netherlands.
Netherlands reminds me of The Shining. Also reminds me of Rose Red, Stephen King's short film. There's or mini series. There's a scene where they're in like a ballroom or something like that, and they I don't know how it does it, but it's like this counter where it can tell how many people are in there, and like the camera zooms out and it just like starts skyrocketing. Like it's a room where there'd be like large gatherings with celebrities, and it was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and just all the way up, and it's just like, scary stuff.
It's scary because are they just stuck in that party?
I don't know. I mean, also, And I'm assuming if they're partying, they didn't leave. Or I mean, there's like realistic things too. Like if they're up late partying, loud music, they're not going to leave probably before her. Unless she slept in till like 1. She didn't tell us those details.
Unless they have to avoid the boss.
Yeah.
Because he came and cooked breakfast?
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing about this. He's like, all right,
strange.
You booked it, you shouldn't have, but I'll let you in, and I guess I'll come over and I'll cook you breakfast.
You're going to make me an omelet?
It's intercontinental, I guess.
Just get her a gift card.
I understand that for this to be unbelievable, that I do have to believe that people snuck in, whether by key or without key, and through a rager, which isn't something that is just like happens all the time. So it's not like it's a convenient unbelievable, and I'm not saying I'm going unbelievable, but like I do realize that it's not like a lot of extenuating things have to happen for it to be paranormal and for it to not be paranormal. Mm-hmm. There's no
easy answer here.
Yeah, there's no Occam's razor.
I'm gonna go viable for this one. I think it's viable that there's ghosts in this haunted hotel.
We don't even know if it's a haunted hotel though.
I'm saying it is.
Okay. I'm somewhere between viable and skeptical.
Oh, yeah. Because it's where you live, buddy.
They're both extremes. It's an extreme that a whole bunch of people would throw a party, but I mean, that's the perfect time to do it is when you know it's closed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of energy in hotels. Like, people come and go, all different things. Good things happen, bad things happen. Kind of almost like a theater in some aspects where there's a lot of energy happening.
I'm gonna use your language. I'm using the lowest possible viable.
Yeah.
Because it is viable. Like I'm using these words at the root of what they actually mean. Like last one, I am skeptical here too, but it is viable because I believe in ghosts and I like it could just be a very haunted. I mean, she was also delirious. She might have imagined it, but that's not, probably not.
I don't think
if
so.
She actually woke up and acknowledged it because she was so exhausted. But I understand it is a reach to assume all these people are just going to crash this hotel and throw this huge party.
It is.
The underlying creep factor is just them not knowing she's there and just that vulnerability. But okay, I'll give it a viable. All right, moving on to Abby's many stories.
Boy, where do we start?
From the beginning.
Start digging.
So we got the door opens, which somehow is this really heavy door sliding across the carpet. You can feel that. And it shuts on its own, and then the horse gets injured and dies a week later from unknown reasons.
I have an idea here. Go with me, right?
Yeah.
So her grandmother had already been diagnosed with lung cancer, right?
At this point, yeah.
Yes. So there's a darkness there that comes from sadness, grief, coming to terms with things.
Mourning. Yeah.
That's an entry point for something. It could be.
Grief ghost.
Well, or something more malevolent. Now, I wonder, while the grandparents were away, it starts to feed off other people. And this is where it's going to attack Abby in a way that's not directly attacking her by scaring her. And then going for something that's loved by everybody. Applejack.
We don't know if it was loved by everyone, but
I'm going to assume the horse is loved by everybody.
Okay.
I think it's a strong assumption.
We know our listener Brittany's out there. He's like, yeah, it was loved by everyone.
Yes.
It's also very symbolic of like entrance.
Yeah,
entrance and like a door is an entrance and an exit, and just like it all starts with the door. I mean, it's shutting, but I mean they're polite. You close the door behind you, but it's just crazy that like if this was the only paranormal thing and nothing else happened, the connection between that door opening and shutting and then Applejack, it's death, the claw mark which comes back.
Yes, but I wonder. So that does come back. You're right. It comes back later with Abby, but also I wonder if it was more strongly affecting her grandmother. This was maybe an attachment that her grandmother had.
Well, I mean, let's get to it. So that happens.
Yeah.
And then about a week or so later, she starts noticing grandmother is
hateful toward her.
Hateful. And like specifically to her, which if we're looking at what happened, Abby acknowledged the door. The mom didn't. Yeah. Abby's the one that called attention to it.
Yes.
Abby got the police involved. She's not the one that called the police, but she's the one that alerted her mom, who then called the police. So it all started around Abby, and her grandmother is hateful towards Abby, and then she has the moment. Doesn't look like her. She's drooling, veins bulging. Same spot too. She said the door shut, She was sitting in the same spot, door shut the same way, but this time her grandmother's there.
Yeah.
In the place of maybe whatever was there the first time, but now there's a tangible person that can take its place and keeps saying you ruined it.
Yeah.
What do you think that means?
I'm not sure.
I wonder.
She's 8.
Well, I wonder if it is I was going to fly under the radar. You know what I mean? You ruined it by you ruined it by kind of giving me away. You got the cops involved. Everyone's aware. Everyone's on high alert. You ruined it. I was going to seep in without anyone noticing and get my claws all around you before anyone could do anything about it. But you called the cops. You drew alert. Everyone's like on edge now, and you ruined it. And like nothing, once the cops come and they block the road and the horse dies, every little detail is gonna, like, you know what I mean? Like you don't just,
it's all gonna be intensified.
Yeah, it's like you don't just ignore like completely change behavior. And I'm reaching here. I mean, there could be something that Abby completely overlooked. She's 8 years old. I mean, there could be a lot of stuff, a lot of context to the story that we're not getting because she doesn't remember.
Right.
You know, it's also trying to reason. I mean, we're only connecting the dots that we were given.
But from those dots, I think that's a very good theory, especially considering what happens with the rest of Abby's situation, life as she grows up, that this thing doesn't necessarily leave her alone.
Yeah. So Abby's grandmother passes away about 6 months later, goes to the funeral and sees the shadow thing in the window.
Yeah. Well, we'll also back up a little bit. We don't know how haunted her grandmother was that whole time.
6 months? No, because she's only saw her like 4 or 5 times since then.
But she felt that presence.
Well, she said that her grandmother seemed to go back to normal. But she just, in her stomach, she just felt. And she's obviously pretty sensitive. So, but also it's just like, if you like, we talked about it with, I think, Clara Germana Seeley, is if someone has an exorcism, can you ever trust that friend again?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like, if you experience that from your grandmother, you know, do you buy the grandfather saying it's just a medication? I think
there's merit there.
Yeah, I don't want to completely discredit that because mental health is real and also medications are known to change behavior.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is. And I don't know enough about lung cancer to know what she would have been given and how that would.
Yeah, I'm not medical.
The veins, dude, she said she ran full grandmother sprint. Full sprint.
Yeah.
Medication made her numb maybe and she just couldn't. It's like like adrenaline.
She's like Usain Bolt in this.
Very scary.
Yeah.
And locked her out.
That's crazy.
So
slowly locked her out.
So she sees the shadow figure, and I don't know if this is the same thing taunting her. Like, I had your grandma. Where am I going to go now? Or if this is, like you said, it is a funeral home.
I don't know. I think that makes sense, though, that it is not. Maybe it is attached to her at this point.
So then we got Jim Bob. We're just going through the whole episode again.
Yeah.
We got Jim Bob, and the two takeaways are similar to Applejack. They both Jim Bob and Abby experience the claw marks.
This thing's got an MO at this point.
So you'd assume this is the same thing.
I think so. I think so.
But this is where it stops. But there's one common denominator that changes. Do you remember?
No, tell me.
She leaves her mom.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is no longer around when she leaves her mom.
You're right.
What if that's part of the you ruined it? Like, what if something went from the grandma to the mom and didn't go to Abby? I'm sorry. I don't mean to put things out on Abby's mom that aren't real. I'm just saying lineage wise. And, you know, obviously it does seem like Abby was I'm going to say instigator, but that's not what I mean. I mean, she was like ground zero.
Yeah.
Like, she's the one with the door opening. She's the one that the grandma said you ruined it. But she doesn't seem to experience this entity again once she leaves her mom and starts living with her dad. Now, she experiences paranormal events, obviously.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem like this thing, unless it's out there killing the cows. Because there are the claw marks again.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about that in a little bit. I don't think that's quite the same thing. I think there's some merit there. Maybe it does.
Or left. I guess, what if she didn't say, she said it was a bad living situation. That was her phrasing.
Yeah.
A bad living situation with her mom, so she lived with her dad. What if, so it was with her grandma, follows Abby and her mom, and like Abby's experiencing it. It's not attached to her mom. It's not attached to Abby, but it's with them. And then when Abby leaves, it stays with the mom because Abby's going from bad situation to hopeful better.
Yeah.
Living with her father. Abby's mom is just alone.
Yes.
Or she's not dating anyone. Her daughter leaves her. So it would make sense if you're a negative entity that you'd want to stay there.
But when it says the ruined part, that's in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I'm saying ruined it as maybe she just didn't get something that the mom had. Like she had the ability to break away from it.
Oh, I see. So
like something Abby doesn't know about herself ruined the
lineage.
Yeah, and that's could be nothing.
It's like lore building.
I'm pulling at whatever. I'm building lore here. These are the paragraphs you can skip to get to the dialogue. But you see what I mean? Like when she leaves and goes with her father, it would make sense that it would be easier for the entity to stay and kind of be with the mom.
Yeah, I do see that. And then
plus she's a nurse too.
That's true. And when she does go with her dad, right? There is a little bit going on there.
Wait, really quick, just so people aren't like, what does he mean by that? I just mean nurses, you're in a hospital, tragedy, death.
Oh, yeah.
You're around that stuff all the time.
I got that. I'm sorry.
I know you got that. I just want to make sure what does he mean by, so what? She's a nurse.
She's a nurse.
I just mean you're in that setting of tragedy, you know, depending on what type of nurse she is. But, it like bringing that home to something already there. It's just like there's a lot of festering.
It's like fertilizer.
But you can go with your thought now. I'm sorry.
So she moves to her dad's house.
Yeah.
And she has this one experience.
With the clanging.
Just
in the
noise,
kitchen. Sink running, just kind of like normal, ghostly, poltergeisty, but just normal.
Kind of, but like nothing really happens.
Well, I think she didn't let it. I think at this point, she's like, you stay, like, I think it was just kind of like
we're done. No. Hard no.
Yeah, like, I'm not entertaining this.
I wonder if like the house was like lightly haunted and like there's like, ooh, someone I could, work here. And she's just like, I'm not giving
someone
you energy.
to notice me.
Yeah, because I do wonder if there was energy here before then.
That's what I want to know. I want to know how many of these places were legitimately haunted or had, haunting activity before Abby arrived.
Right.
So then they move again. Her dad travels a lot, and they're on this 100-year-old place with 90 acres. Her dad's friend Tim is like skinwalkers and Indian burial ground, and all the other animals are like, don't go to the edge, and the cows are like,
I'm going to the edge.
Yeah.
And can't tell me what to do.
And this part, I actually got scared from looking at you, and I'm like, there better not be anything behind me. No. The girl from the closet.
That's so scary to me. That she's experienced all this. She said it herself. She hates closets.
Yeah.
And then this thing creaks it open. He goes, hey.
Just smiling.
What's up? What the fuck?
And she's like, sometimes in my closet, sometimes at the edge of my bed. But she's like, I like looking at her until I fall asleep.
No. No.
That's being so scarred from so much trauma. And I mean that in the nicest way, Abby, but like, I'm not looking at a ghost until I fall asleep peacefully. But it must be a feeling. It's not the visual. It's not what it means. It's whatever feeling. And I know you probably think it's spy.
Yeah.
You can't trust it.
I can't trust
it. But whatever feeling it's emanating, I think I use that right.
Yeah.
Whatever she is being portrayed onto her.
Yeah.
Is helping her relax and fall asleep.
I was literally thinking you cannot trust that. That's so scary.
And that's all. I'm sure between when she submitted that now, who knows what has happened.
I know, right?
That is a lifetime of paranormal events. And I go believable. Like, you pick one. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like,
yeah.
Even if all of it wasn't real and it was just the clanging and the sink running upstairs, and like it's still believable.
Or even just the shadow at the funeral home. It's nothing to do with anything.
The door shutting. It's like there's so many.
Yeah, I also go believable.
It's also like in the realm of ghost stories and entities and things that we talk about, nothing is quite out of the realm of like what you could imagine happening. You know what I mean? Like if you already believe in this stuff, nothing in these stories is like the story we did last week where the trail in the house vanished.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot then you need to really buy into the story, not to rip on an old story, but like to believe that a whole trail and a whole house vanished.
Yeah.
Like there's hoops you have to jump through to get to I believe that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying you can't, but there are like qualifiers you got to get through. This stuff is like, if you believe in hauntings, but then it just turns into like, Okay, then this will be the last comment on it. We both believe this. We both give it believable for at least the first half of this. Actually, no, hold on. I have two questions. I want to get your thought on this because
Sure.
we kind of skimmed over it. What do you think is doing this to these cows?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. It feels like it could be some kind of predatory animal or animals, or it could be maybe chupacabra. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I agree. I don't think it's skinwalkers. I don't know. I have no idea. It's just kind of like, it's like there's so much other stuff happening.
Yeah.
Like I'm still on the grandma. You know, it's like I don't got time to worry about these cows.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the cows, but it's weird. It's like it's killing them but not eating them. You know,
Yeah, it's
and they're like
strange.
even coyotes. Like once the cows were dead,
Yeah.
it's like even the coyotes were afraid to take the meat and the food away from whatever it was that did
It's
it.
probably aliens.
Yeah,
It's probably aliens.
just checking on the cows.
Honestly.
Wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so my real last question. What do you think this main entity is? The first entity, starting from the door opening through the grandmother, her passing, the funeral home, and I'll even say at the house with Jim Bob and Abby getting clawed. What are you thinking this is?
Man. My instinct is demonic. It just gives me shivers thinking that.
It's so scary to think too, like what initiated this? Like we know the door slamming was like the first thing she acknowledges, but like what led to that? What invited this thing? And I know you said that the grief,
I really do think that's what is really the door opening.
the diagnosis, and yeah, I'm very susceptible.
Mm-hmm.
It's tragic. It's sad. It's very, very scary. So that is our episode, The Shadow of Grandmother's Funeral.
Ooh, that's
Grandmother's funeral.
more menacing now.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's very spooky. Very spooky. Thank you for submitting your stories.
Couldn't do without you guys. Tell you what.
Literally couldn't do it. You know,
we could actually.
no, that's where not my mind's at. Sometimes we get stories where it's like a fleeting moment. Like I would say Robin's, even though it's scary, it's a very scary one night situation.
Yes, yeah.
But like you leave the next day and you're fine. I actually feel a weird exhaustion from Abby's story.
Oh,
Like I feel
I understand.
exhausted. It's
Yes.
kind of like this is a lot.
yes.
Like loss, tragedy. It's kind of not quite like we did the Sault Ste. Marie, where it's like you can tell like the long term impact and losing friendships, not finishing school, depression. But this just feels, and she didn't really reveal this in here. Like in her submission, it didn't say I feel defeated. You know, I can't continue life. Like she got married. She went to Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good for you. But just going through it, it's just kind of like I feel like a weight. Like
I know what you mean. It's like almost like we took on that for a little bit, but like I couldn't.
that's
imagine.
their life.
Yes, that's what I was gonna
It's-
say. Like I couldn't imagine having that forever.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's how I feel right now. But thank you everybody so much for listening. Let us know your thoughts, and you can do that directly. If you're listening on Apple, you can't really do it for Apple. It'd be a one-time review for a one story that would last forever, which is okay.
That's fine.
But
Nothing wrong with that.
on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review for the podcast. Let us know your thoughts. But if you are listening on Spotify and they haven't done any updates the last week or day,
Who knows?
you can comment on every single individual episode. We now have the ability to reply to them too, which is awesome. But we see them. We literally have to approve them. So the only way they get published is if we see them. But let us know your thoughts on this episode. What you liked, what freaked you out, whether you find certain things believable or unbelievable, and maybe details we missed or thoughts or theories. I love when someone gives us a theory that we did not even consider and just kind of like, whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I did want to say this before you got to the Spotify reviews.
Yeah.
You mentioned the trail from the last episode.
Yes. We going there?
No, we're not going
okay.
there. I know who that is. Like, we've talked to him several times. He's actually the guy that made those knives for us and sent them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Are knives here?
No, mine's not. Mine's in the house somewhere. You gotta keep it, I gotta keep that thing on me for Faye.
I think mine's here, unless Ben's.
Is it?
Broke.
One of his several knives.
I don't know. I feel like mine's here somewhere.
It might be. But anyway, you were going to read some Spotify reviews?
Yeah. Here are some reviews on Spotify from our last episode. Stevie said, this episode definitely was a crazy one, especially the one story where Sydney saw that jester. Definitely gave me chills. Love you guys. Can't wait for next Tuesday, which is right now. McCarville 33 said, "This was a great podcast. There's like a calling an episode like an episode versus a podcast. Like if you listen to it, you know what I mean? It's like I've heard people interchange the word podcast versus episode. Like that was a great podcast. That was a great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like, I think I know the actual correct like umbrella. The umbrella is Leaving the Bizarre is the podcast.
Yes.
This is the episode. But I've heard people interchange that.
I don't know.
Anyway, this is a great podcast. I love it when you put on listener stories. Some are hard to believe, but most are very viable. As a retired police officer of 32 years, there were some calls for service that had no explanation for, and you just walk away. Keep up the good work.
I want his listener submissions.
That makes me think of the Jim Harold Black Eyed Kid story.
Yes.
Kathleen said, the outros with Ben in the background are my favorite laughing emoji. Anthony said, I really enjoyed the episode, especially the part with the bloody shadow. LOL. Honestly, you guys are really hitting your stride with these episodes. They've been fantastic. One question. When should I expect the Rough Chuck action figure pre-order to drop?
Oh, boy.
Love that.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
And finally, Andrew said, excellent show as usual. I love your humor. Tyler often says a funny comment when I'm thinking. Also, I heard you, Ben.
Ben's very happy.
He's not here, so. But if he was, he would say, and Ben. But also, this Friday, keep your eyes peeled for our blind rankings.
Bizarre news.
And bizarre news. Lots of strange stuff happening. Should we give a hint about the blind rankings?
Sure, yeah.
Which one was it? Was zombies.
The zombies.
It has something to do with zombies.
And not the Cranberry song.
Or the wolf something.
That's a cover of
It's a cover, but it's wolf something.
Wolf something. Not something. Cranberries.
It's got a deeper voice than the Cranberries.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we appreciate you guys. If you want more bizarre news stories, you can check out our Patreon. You'll get a couple extra ones along with the wheelbarrow full of dirt and other paranormal.
That I was like, where are you going? Yes,
bonus
there's some
segments that we put out there because there's a lot.
Yeah,
there is a lot.
Oh, something that we do on Patreon.
What do we do on Patreon, Charlie?
We actually, if you like these, we occasionally get to talk to the people that send these in. We just recorded one the other day.
We did.
Shout
out Sophia. I mean, did we get permission to say it? Like
she literally said, I do not give a shit anymore.
All right, Lainey. Shout out Lainey, who did the contorting
shadow entity Hugo. Oof. Ooh. Imagery is terrible.
Very, very creepy. Yeah. So yeah, one of the things we do on Patreon is we interview the folks that submit these stories. So if there's one that you're really into, there's a chance I'll interview the person that sent it in, and there's always things they forgot. Things we glossed over.
Lots of details.
Things that have happened since.
Love those. I love the follow-ups.
It's always a good conversation and very creepy. So that's there, along with so much other stuff on Patreon if you're interested. But thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast that's going to legally change our name to the Jim Bob Bizarre Podcast. As always, I'm Tyler.
I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
The podcast is bizarre as you are.